The Galactic Council had been very clear in their proclamation: no kinetic projectile weapons powered by chemical combustion would be permitted within Council space. The edict had been passed 3 centuries ago, after the Krolix Wars had devastated 17 star systems. Energy weapons were acceptable. Melee combat was traditional, but barbaric guns were forbidden. So when the human delegation arrived at Station Kepler-7 for the integration talks, Security Commander Vexter felt confident in his preparations. His scanners were calibrated to detect any trace of gunpowder, plasma residue, or railgun signatures. What they found instead made him pause at his terminal, mandibles clicking in confusion. Scans show no prohibited weapons, his subordinate reported, but the humans are carrying ... something, dense metal objects, curved, and bundles of thin rods. Vexter waved a chitinous hand dismissively. Probably ceremonial items. Let them through. Marcus Chen stepped off the transport first, his boots echoing on the station's polished floor. Behind him, Sarah Okonkwo adjusted the compound bow slung across her back, its carbon steel limbs gleaming under the artificial lights. 6 more humans followed, each carrying similar equipment, along with quivers filled with arrows that had been machined with a precision that would have made medieval Fletchers weep with envy. The integration talks began poorly. Ambassador Threlanak, a towering creature from the Zentari Collective, looked down his elongated snout at the human representatives. Your species wishes to join the Council, yet you come from a world still mired in violence. Your history is written in bloodshed. Marcus remained calm, hands folded on the conference table. Every species here has a violent past. Ambassador, the question isn't where we've been, but where we're going. Pretty words, Threlanak sneered. But words mean nothing when the station's alarms shrieked to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in crimson as Vexter's voice crackled over the CUM system. Pirate breach. Sector 7. All delegates to secure locations. The Raxian pirates had chosen their moment well, with most of the Council's military forces engaged in border disputes 3 systems away. Station Kepler-7 was vulnerable. They wanted the trade codes stored in the station's core codes, worth billions of credits on the black market. 20 pirates, each wearing power armor and carrying energy lances, stormed through Sector 7. The station's security forces, armed with standard-issue stunners and light energy shields, fell back in disarray. Power armor was nearly impenetrable to their weapons. All delegates remain in the conference hall, Vexter ordered, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. We're sealing the doors. Marcus stood abruptly. How many attackers? 20, maybe more. Full combat armor. We can't open the doors. The conference hall fell silent. Even Threlanak stared at the human in disbelief. Are you insane? Vexter demanded. Sarah was already on her feet, unslinging her bow. The other humans followed suit, the quiet whisper of carbon fiber and steel filling the chamber. Marcus pulled his own bow from its Caesar recurve design that looked deceptively simple, but had been engineered with materials. Science that pushed the boundaries of tensile strength. You said no guns, Marcus said quietly, knocking an arrow with a broadhead tip made of tungsten carbide. You never said anything about bows. The pirates rounded the corner expecting cowering delegates and overwhelmed security. What they found instead were 8 humans standing in a perfect line, bows drawn, arrows aimed with a steadiness that spoke of countless hours of training. The lead pirate laughed, his translator rendering it as a harsh bark. Primitives with sticks, our armor can withstand. Sarah released first. The arrow crossed 30 meters in a fraction of a second. The kinetic energy from her 70-pound draw weight, concentrated into a tungsten tip no wider than a pencil, punched through the pirate's chest plate like it was paper, the hydrostatic shock of the broadhead expanding. Inside the armor cavity dropped him instantly. The other humans fired in a rippling sequence. Arrows whistled through the air, some with bodkin points designed for armor penetration. Others with expanding broadheads that created devastating wound channels. The pirates' energy shields, calibrated to disperse plasma bolts and laser fire, did nothing against solid projectiles traveling at over 200 miles per hour. A pirate raised his energy lance. Marcus's arrow took him through the weapon's power cell, and the subsequent explosion sent 2 more attackers sprawling. Sarah had already knocked another arrow, her movements fluid and practiced. Draw, aim, release. Another pirate fell. An arrow buried to the fletching in the weak point, where his helmet joined his neck seal. The engagement lasted 43 seconds. When it was over, 17 pirates lay dead or incapacitated. The remaining 3 had fled, traumatized by a form of combat their species hadn't seen in millennia. Vexter emerged from cover, his compound eyes wide with shock. The conference hall reeked of blood and ozone. The human arrows had been so effective, so brutally efficient, that his mind struggled to process what he'd witnessed. Marcus calmly unstrung his bow. "We studied your weapons regulations very carefully, Commander. Chemical combustion is prohibited. Energy weapons are monitored, but potential energy stored in flexed limbs." He smiled thinly. "That's just physics." Ambassador Threlanak approached slowly, his earlier arrogance gone. He studied the fallen pirates, noting how the primitive projectiles had defeated armor that cost more than most colonies' annual budgets. "How?" he whispered. Sarah pulled an arrow from her quiver, holding it up to the light. "Humans have used bows for over 10,000 years. We never stopped refining them. Modern materials, computer-aided design, precision manufacturing." She traced the arrow's tungsten tip with one finger. "We just made them better." "You could have used energy weapons," Threlanak said. "Why maintain such ancient arts?" Marcus looked at the ambassador steadily. "Because you can ban technology, Ambassador. You can outlaw guns and regulate plasma rifles, but you can't ban ingenuity. You can't legislate away the human ability to take something old and make it devastating." The Galactic Council approved humanity's integration 3 days later. The vote was unanimous. A new amendment was added to the weapons regulations. Kinetic projectile weapons powered by mechanical energy storage were now included in the prohibited items list. But by then, human engineers were already working on the next generation of weaponry: crystalline chakrams with molecular edges, handheld railguns powered by capacitors instead of chemicals, and something they were calling kinetic gauntlets. As the human delegation departed Station Kepler, Vexter watched their ship disappear into the stars. "They're going to be trouble," he muttered. His subordinate clicked agreement. "Yes, Commander, but I think they're going to be our trouble, and that's better than the alternative." In the cargo bay of the human ship, Marcus cleaned his bow with a soft cloth, smiling to himself. The galaxy had spent centuries creating rules to prevent violence. Humans had spent millennia learning that violence, like water, always found a way. They just preferred theirs to be elegant.